Celtics and Sixers squaring off. First time this season tonight, guys. Boston swept Philly in the first round last postseason, as we know. Completely different Sixers team, though. Your guy Doc Rivers at the helm, a bunch of shooters acquired over the offseason. Paul, have they closed the gap on the Celtics, who are atop the East standings right now?
No, I don't think so. And the main reason I feel that way is because I don't feel like Ben Simmons has gotten any better. I mean, if you're gonna elevate to the next level and be championship contenders, it has to come from your stars. Yes, Embiid looks better. They've added a coaching staff, but they're not going to be on the court with you. They added Seth Curry, but until Ben Simmons makes that next jump, I just don't think so. I mean, we've seen Tatum get better. We've seen Brown get better. Kemba's going to come back healthy, and so I really don't see the gap closing right there.
I think it's closed a little bit from the standpoint of I think we're going to know what we're getting with Ben Simmons. He's around the 12, 13-point range, but he's also a triple-double guy every single night. And if Tobias Harris is the highest paid player on the team, if he can stay consistent with his scoring at about that 18 to 20-point mark, Embiid is playing really well. Seth Curry's playing really well. I think the gap is closed, but I still think Boston is a better team. And overall, I think Brooklyn is the team in the East, and we're going to see tonight with Kyrie coming back.
That's for sure. Now, you guys have both played for Doc. He has made a real effort to, first of all, coach Tobias more the way he was coached when Tobias was with the Clippers, obviously, but also coaching Joel and talking to him about how the offense does revolve around him, and talking to Ben and saying, I'm not even going to tell you to go shoot threes. Just do what you're comfortable with. Do what you're good at. What difference does it make when Doc talks to you like that?
Well, I mean, definitely when you get new energy as a coach, when you look at a team that's kind of been stuck on the treadmill, haven't really made that leap, and you get new coaching staff, somebody that, I think they believe in, who has that experience, who's won a championship, who's a player coach. Mm-hmm. It can be extra motivating to your players. I mean, Doc is he's going to come with those pregame speeches that's going to help you try to run through a wall.
That's what I was going to say. Doc is a great talker, you know what I mean? So maybe that's what those guys needed, was more encouragement. You could tell with the way Joel Embiid has been playing. You said he's coaching Tobias Harris the way he coached him in LA. So that's the one thing I'll give Doc is like Paul said, he's a great motivational, and he empowers you to be the best possible you. So I think that's where they've also, got a little advantage right there.
All right, so you did mention the Nets. I got to get your take in the last minute of the show here. What do you think of the Harden, Durant, now Kyrie tonight Nets?
When Kyrie wants to play, he's one of the best players in the world. He wants to come back now. He's going to have to be the one that sacrifices, because we see how good James is with the ball, how good KD is. So can Kyrie sacrifice? I think he can.
Those are good problems for the Nets.
Right.
Adding another all-star, a champ, a guy with experience. And this team is scary. I mean, before I said the Lakers are going to make the finals and I don't see anybody out East beating them, I think they have a challenge now with the Nets.
Do you feel like you're already seeing an equality there?
Yes, I am. I mean,
they're small. They're small.
If
don't be surprised if you start seeing Jeff Green play more 5, Kevin Durant play 5, because DeAndre's their only true big guy plus the rookie they have. But when it comes down to the stretch, it's going to be a small team. We're going to see what happens.
Good stuff on the NBA tonight. Check out ESPN. Thanks to these guys for joining me. We'll see you tomorrow.
Keynote address at the Democratic National Convention.
I meant a large audience.
Oh.
Welcome back. I am honored to welcome into the jump former NBA All-Star, 2-time champion with the Knicks, member of the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, and of course, former U.S. Senator, Mr. Bill Bradley. Thank you, Bill, so much for joining us today. And I'm really sorry your sportscasting career didn't quite pan out there.
Well, only the very best make it on ESPN. I mean, you can't have your own show unless you're the very best.
I've heard that somewhere. Thank you so much. Of course, a historic day for the country. What does Inauguration Day, especially this particular Inauguration Day, mean to you?
Well, it was deeply meaningful to me. I mean, I remember George Washington said the most important election that the country will have is not the first president that is elected, but the second. In other words, a transition of power, a peaceful transition of power. And that's what this ritual is all about. It's about going from one person to another in a peaceful way. And given the events of the previous 2 weeks, it's really deeply moving for me to see it. I'm always moved by these inaugurations. I was on the dais when Reagan was selected, inaugurated, and when Clinton was inaugurated, and out in the audience when Obama was inaugurated. So it's a deeply meaningful ritual, symbolic of a new beginning.
You mentioned the events of a couple weeks ago. Given your experience as a senator for the state of New Jersey for nearly 20 years, what was it like for you to witness the riot, insurrection, the idea that they attempted to storm and take over the Capitol on January 6th?
Well, I was appalled. I felt personally violated because I knew all those nooks and crannies in that Capitol. I worked in that chamber. In that sense, I felt personally violated. The Rotunda is kind of the secret cathedral of American democracy, and people were in it defiling it. I think all of them should be prosecuted, and it should never be tolerated again.
We saw so many sports figures speak out after that event happened. And it's interesting. There are people who say, oh, we shouldn't have politics in sports. You played during a time where you know that was frankly never true, that there weren't politics in sports. And I'm curious what you think of today's athlete, NBA athletes in particular, who have been so vocal advocating on behalf of social justice. What has impressed you about that, and how does it compare to similar efforts by players of your generation? Because, you know, the 60s and 70s, that was a time too.
Sure. Well, I'm particularly pleased by what they did in the lockdown in Orlando. You know, they took a real stand, and in taking a stand, they put themselves at risk. But Adam Silver's always encouraged players to be politically involved, and they were definitely that. In our time, we were politically involved a little differently. You know, I mean, I taught school in a Harlem Street Academy, worked in the poverty program in Washington. Other players did things with schools. So it was a little different, but the same element of commitment was there.
Absolutely. We're going to ask you for any Phil Jackson stories behind the scene from that time, or should I save that for off the air?
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, I'll tell you a story of Phil Jackson, not from those times, but related to the Senate. Phil always tried to get his players, stimulate them in many different ways. And so one day he called me up when I was in the Senate and said he'd like to bring the Bulls to the Senate. And so the Senate was off that day, so the chamber was closed. And I took the Bulls into the Senate chamber, and you know where Michael Jordan naturally gravitated, right to the majority leader's desk.
I'm not surprised. Nothing about that story is surprising, and very gracious of you to offer that tour. You know, the NBA released video of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar receiving his COVID-19 vaccine, and the idea was to promote the use of inoculations to end this pandemic. Commissioner Adam Silver added on Tuesday, the league has at least discussed having current players receive COVID vaccines to educate and influence the public regarding its safety and effectiveness. And kind of the line the NBA would have to walk there is, are they setting a good example by doing that? Or is it going to appear too much that they're jumping the line in some way? Where do you fall on that? What are you in favor of there?
Well, I think that the more we can encourage people to get the vaccine, the better we're going to be. 100 million people in the first 100 days is a very ambitious goal, and people are going to have to know about where they can get the vaccine and be encouraged to take the initiative to do it. And there are some players probably who could encourage them to do that.
Absolutely. And I do want to ask you a little bit more about today's players, specifically, of course, your New York Knicks. They are off to a 7-8 start this season. Good for 6th place in the East under new coach Tom Thibodeau. How optimistic are you about this team, this season, the future of the organization?
Well, I don't pretend. Once a Knicks fan, always a Knicks fan. So I have high hopes. I'm pleased with where they are now, and hopefully we'll see where they are at All-Star time. If they're there, then maybe there's a chance to do well, better than anybody thought. But you always like to see your old team do well, particularly in New York.
That was a very political answer, Senator. I appreciate that. Last but not least, I want to know who your favorite basketball player is to watch in the NBA right now.
I like Steph Curry. I like the way he moves without the ball. I like the way he uses screens. I like the way he uses his hands to push off. And, of course, I like the shots. I mean, unbelievable release from incredible range. So I watch him, and I see some of the things that he does out there that reminds me of what was really the best about the old Knicks teams.
You can hit from out there, right? Good 10 feet behind the three-point line?
Yeah, but it only counted 2 points then, Rachel.
Those were the days. Thank you. Thank you so much, Senator Bradley. We are just thrilled to have you join us. Your excellent perspective on a day like today. We're grateful.
Thank you, Rachel.
All right, coming up, we will preview our huge NBA doubleheader tonight on ESPN after